Thank you guys all for coming and listening. Today we're going to be talking about ancient Egyptian religion. So to start this all off, I'm going to start with a spell from the Book of the Dead. It starts, "My hair is new, my face is raw, my eyes are Hathor. There are no member of mine devoid of a god, and Thoth is the protection of all my flesh." That sounded completely crazy, I know. It doesn't make any sense. But that was spell number 42 of the Book of the Dead. It's meant to protect the dead as they travel through the afterlife so they do not get slaughtered by Osiris's servants. That was described very nicely at ancientegypt.com in case anybody is interested. All right, so how many people have somewhat of an understanding of ancient Egypt? A little bit? Okay, well, for those of you who knew nothing about ancient Egypt, after my speech, you can at least know about the ancient Egyptian religion. And for those of you who did know a little bit about ancient Egypt, you can add the knowledge of the ancient Egyptian religion to your repertoire. All right, so today I am going to explain the three main proponents of the ancient Egyptian religion. It's a very complex religion. All right, so I'll start by explaining the gods and the numerous roles they played in the ancient Egyptian religion. Next, I'll talk about the rituals performed by the Egyptians in order to please the gods and make it into the afterlife. And finally, I will explain the afterlife itself and the journey our Egyptians took. Alright, so now that you guys know the three main proponents of the ancient Egyptian religion, let's dive into each a little bit deeper. Alright, so our ancient Egyptian religion was a polytheistic religion. They worshipped over 2,000 different deities. 7 are major in the Egyptian religion, although I'm going to give you guys 3 examples today: Ra, Osiris, and Horus. It's very important to understand how these gods came to be. According to Dr. Wilkinson, legend has it that creation came out of chaos. Out rose Atum, who spat out Shu and Tufnut. The tears of these 3 gods created men and women, and from Shu and Tufnut, the rest of the gods were born. So because this was a human-formed religion, it naturally had a deity created into it. Amun, or Ra, was the highest god and took the form of the sun. Osiris was the ruler of the underworld, and Horus was the symbol of the earthly king. Pharaohs began to believe that they themselves were reincarnations of the god Horus. It became such a widespread belief that the ancient Egyptians began to worship their pharaoh as the bodily temple of Horus. Alright, so now that we understand what they were worshiping, we need to understand how they worshipped. Alright, so the ancient Egyptian religion was a pagan religion, and like all other pagan religions, they had rituals. These took place in the temples, which were ornate buildings. Each district or city of Egypt had a particular god that was assigned to them, and those that worked in the temples were second only to the pharaoh. These priests virtually controlled all of Egypt and the knowledge that our people heard. The pharaoh, however, resided as the highest priest of all the temples in all of Egypt. Right, so one ritual that I'm sure all of you guys have heard of is mummification. It is a 70-day ritual that began after a prominent person died. One Oxford student's college thesis, "Gods in Ancient Egypt," explains how from there the high priest and the high priest began rituals. The high priest said incantations over your dead body, while the priest removed the brain, stomach, liver, intestines, and lungs and placed them in canopic jars. Lastly, the high priest would perform the opening of the mouth ceremony, in which he would prepare your senses for your journey into the afterlife. So now that we know where, who, and what the rituals were that the ancient Egyptians performed, it is time to understand the end purpose of all of this. So the ancient Egyptians were obsessed with the afterlife. They lived their entire lives in preparation for the journey after death. Pharaohs began to build elaborate pyramids where they and their earthly treasures would be buried to begin the journey into the afterlife. Each pharaoh or prominent person was not buried without the Book of the Dead. This contained over 200 spells in order to guide a soul into the afterlife. Without this book, you could not reach the afterlife safely. Once you were inside the afterlife, the god Ra became your guide. There are 7 cataracts in the afterlife, which mirrored the 7 cataracts of the Nile, which are basically like little tiny waterfalls that happen. Ra would journey through each of these cataracts during the night to be reborn as the sun in the morning, and our souls would hitch a ride, so to speak, as they entered the afterlife until they came to the Hall of Truth, where they would be tested by Osiris to figure out which part of the afterlife their soul would reside. Alright, so the ancient Egyptians, as you can see, had a very complex religion. Without the gods, the Egyptians' religion would have crumbled. To please the gods and make it into the afterlife, the priests performed rituals in the temples of their gods. Finally, our Egyptian goal in life was to make it into the afterlife. Let's end with a special spell from the Book of the Dead, said to have helped those take the form of an official in the tribunal. Hail Atum, who made the sky, who created those which exist, Lord of all that is, who gave birth to the gods. All right, thank you guys.